Thank you, Dr. Ajit. Thank you for having me for this course. This talk will be a talk on both a very, very brief talk on the normal fluorescein angiogram, followed by how to approach a fluorescein angiogram, how to go about trying to interpret an angiogram. You won't be arriving at a diagnosis per se, but how to go about trying to arrive at a diagnosis. That's what this course is all about, this talk is all about. We all know about the basic principles of fluorescein angiogram. We inject a fluorescein dye which enters the retinal choroidal circulation. This is stimulated by blue light, which then the unbound dye gets stimulated and emits a green light, which then comes out of the eye, passes through the filter and is captured on the film. These filters are important because they should allow only blue light to go in and only green light to come out. A mismatch causes what we call as a autofluorescence. We all know the different stages of a fluorescein angiogram. Once you inject the dye, it enters the choroidal circulation, then the arterial, arteriovenous, and the late circulations. Choroidal circulation is something which we often ignore to see, but it's important to give some importance to this because it is important, as we'll see in the next slide. It has a patchy filling which gradually becomes evenly filled out as we go during the course of the angiogram. If there's a cilia or retinal artery that fills up at this particular phase of the fluorescein angiogram, this is an example of a patient with posterior ciliary artery occlusion, where you can see a persistence of the choroidal non-filling even in the mid AV phase or late AV phase. So this indicates a pathological status. There are some cases where you can have this normal non-filling for a little stage up to the early AV phase that you have to differentiate from this abnormal status. Arterial phase, it's a very, very rapid filling of the arteries. You don't see a leading edge. That means you don't see the dye coming into the arteries like this. So when you see the leading edge, it's an abnormal finding. There may be a slight discrepancy this is a few milliseconds discrepancy in the filling of the superior and inferior arteries. That's a normal finding. The arterial phase is followed by the early AV phase, which has a typical what is identified by what is called as a lamellar flow. And here you can see the typical lamellar flow in the veins. Sometimes when the two veins with lamellar flow joins together, you have this trilamellar flow here. That's not always seen. So the lamellar flow helps you to identify that this is an early AV phase. So you don't need to really look at the timer setting or anything else. You look at the angiogram, look at the relative filling of the artery veins. It tells you what phase of the angiogram is. The mid phase, late phase is differentiated by the relative filling of the arteries and veins. In the late AV phase, you have more or less an equal arterial and venous hyperfluorescence, and it fades out in the later phase. Assessment of the FAZ is an important aspect of fluorescein angiogram, and the best frames to choose are the mid-AV phase, or around 25 to 30 seconds after injection of the dye. That's when most of the parafoveal capillaries are best seen. And never forget to assess the disc fluorescence. The disc starts fluorescing right from the early phases. We know that the disc is supplied both by the retinal and the choroidal circulations. So it starts filling up right from the early phases. Look for any segmental non-fillings. Look for any abnormal staining. This is important and has a lot of prognostic importance, diagnostic importance, as we'll see in the subsequent pictures. Now we quickly go to the steps in which how to go about interpreting an angiogram. Important to remember that never try to interpret an angiogram from printouts. Most of your informations are lost in a printout. Always interpret it on the monitor itself. If you're getting your angiogram done elsewhere, ask them to give you a soft copy, either mail it to you or give it on a CD, and you see it on the monitor itself. This is important. You should have a normal idea about what is normal angiogram and what constitutes abnormal angiogram. This again comes from experience as you see more and more angiograms. You should have a normal knowledge about the angiographic appearance of different retinal conditions. We call this as pattern recognition. We'll come back in the subsequent slides. These are the different steps we use to approach a fluorescein angiogram. Don't be intimidated by the number of points here. These are all something which we very logically do. The first step is always review the clinical history and findings in the patient. You should know why the angiogram was ordered in the first place, because this focuses your attention on the pathology, what you need to look. You don't randomly advise a fluorescein angiogram in any diabetic or any other patient. You're doing it for a specific purpose. You are not able to appreciate something clinically, so you're doing a fluorescein angiogram. So it's important to know why you're doing the fluorescein angiogram. Review the fundus photographs before you jump to the fluorescein angiogram. See the fundus pictures. See the red-free pictures and pre-injection pictures. People often confuse between these two. Red-free pictures are different from pre-injection photographs. Red-free is more or less a black and white picture. Gives you the superficial details much more clearly. Whereas pre-injection photographs are taken with the filters in place before you inject the dye. Pre-injection pictures should normally be totally dark. You should not be seeing anything in a pre-injection photographs. And why you should look at pre-injection photographs is highlighted in this case. This is a patient with absorbing hemorrhage here at the macula post-trauma. You can see the pre-injection photo is showing autofluorescence here. And if you ignore this picture and you just look at the fluorescein angiogram, you will interpret this as a hyperfluorescent lesion, where actually it is a hypofluorescent, and the hyperfluorescence is because of the autofluorescence of this dehemoglobinized blood. So important to look at pre-injection pictures in these. Assess the general quality of the angiograms. If the quality of the angiogram is not too good, you have to be cautious with your findings. You may be missing things. The dye may not be adequately injected rapidly enough. Assess the timer settings. Timers are useful in only very, very few cases, not in all cases. You need to know if there is a really delayed filling of arteries, veins. This gives you some idea. And here you should know how rapidly the dye is being injected, where it is being injected, whether it's injected in the back of dorsum of the hand or it's in the elbow. All this matters. Now, once you come to the interpretation, just have a quick glance through all phases of the angiogram. And this is mainly to see if you see any abnormality. You are conversant with how a normal angiogram looks like. Quickly just run through the angiogram to look for any abnormality. If you see an abnormal pattern, follow it through all phases of the angiogram. See what happens to it in the early, the mid and the late phase. Now if you see you're seeing some abnormality here, go to the mid phase, see what happens to the fluorescein angiogram. Go to the next late phase and see what happens to this. Once you know how it goes from early to late phase, you know what the possible diagnosis in these patients. Now this is very easy to say when you have only one lesion. You have one abnormality here. It's easy to follow these lesions subsequently. You know the hyperfluorescence is increasing, it's increasing further in the later phases. But what do you do if you have multiple lesions? You have some abnormality here, you have some abnormality here. This is where your knowledge about why the angiogram was advised comes into picture, and you know where to focus. And when you have multiple lesions like this, it's important. It's very simple method is to try to break up the lesions into different entities. Like you just follow this abnormality in the early, the mid and the late phase. You see this hyperfluorescence gradually increasing in the mid phase, fading out in the late phase. This tells you that it is something like a transmission defect or a window defect. Whereas if you see this abnormality here, you follow this in the mid phase and in the late phase. It's increasing in intensity, increasing fuzziness. It tells you that it's something else. It's not just a transmission defect, likely to be a CNVM. So break up these lesions into multiple small lesions and follow each lesion from the beginning to the end. Now, in fluorescein angiography, only two abnormalities are possible. Either it is lesion is hypofluorescent or it is hyperfluorescent. If it is a hypofluorescent lesion, see what happens in the early and the late phase. If it remains hypo in the early and the late phase, this indicates and if you fundus photography, you see some lesion there, it indicates that it's likely to be a blocked fluorescence. So you look for the possible causes of blocked fluorescence. You can also have a non-filling defect which remains hypo throughout, but in the late phase, a lot of times you see leakage of the dye around the area of the blocked fluorescence. If you have an early hypofluorescence which gradually becomes hyper in the late phase, almost always this indicates an inflammatory pathology. So this is again an important finding because it tells you something about a pathological change that is occurring in the eye. So early hypo, late hyper, keep a note of this, it's likely to be an inflammatory lesions. What happens if the lesion is hyperfluorescent? Now, in hyperfluorescence, you have to do three things. You have to look at the size, you have to look at the intensity, and you have to look at the margins of the lesions. If you have, I think I have 15 minutes here. If you have an early hyperfluorescent lesion, if it increases in the mid and fades in the later phase, and the margins remain same, this tells you that this is likely to be a transmission defect or a window defect. If it is a hyperfluorescent lesion which intensity goes on increasing, margins remain well defined, extent also remains the same, this is likely to be a pigment epithelial detachment. If you have a hyperfluorescent lesion which goes on increasing in intensity, margins increases, margins become more fuzzy, you're looking at something else. You're possibly looking at a CNVM. So depending on how it behaves in the early mid phase, the intensity, the extent and the margins, you come to an interpretation of a fluorescein angiogram. The exact diagnosis and different conditions will be covered by subsequent speakers. Now, once you have seen the abnormalities, always try to correlate these abnormalities with your clinical findings. When you go back to the fundus picture, go back to the clinical findings. Is it really fitting? And try to find out that whatever lesion you're thinking clinically, is the angiogram picture matching with that? Is the fluorescein angiogram giving you any more information about the underlying pathology? And this is best highlighted in this particular picture. You have a patient with atrophic lesions, large atrophic lesions here, and you have atrophic lesions here. Now, this atrophic lesion, the central atrophic lesions, if you follow it, it behaves differently from the atrophic lesions in this area. Now, if you try to analyze it as to why this is different, you will come to know that what is actually happening in the fundus. In these areas, these are much more atrophic than the other areas. You have atrophy of both the RPE and the choriocapillaris. So because the choriocapillaris is not there, you have a relative hypofluorescence in the earlier phases. And in the later phases, because both your RP choriocapillaris is missing, the sclera always normally stains. So what you're seeing is a scleral staining through that defect. Whereas in the other areas, you have just the atrophy of the RPE. The choriocapillaris is still intact. So you have an increase in early hyperfluorescence here, which fades away in the later phases. So this way you can try to come to a conclusion as to what are the possible layers affected in the fluorescein angiogram. Look for any specific patterns. This is probably one of the most important way in which most of us use to diagnose an angiogram. This is what is called as a pattern recognition. What it essentially means is you have seen that pattern previously in a different patient, different book or atlas or wherever, and you're seeing the same thing in your case, and you come to a conclusion. Now, to give a simple example, you've seen this thing. This is what we call as a smokestack appearance. You have a dot hyperfluorescence which ascends and gives you sort of an umbrella-shaped thing in the late phase. This is a particular pattern which is very specific for a certain condition. Similar status, you have a small dot which goes on increasing, what we call as an ink blot hyperfluorescence. This is again a very, very specific pattern, particular for a particular condition. So knowing these patterns helps you to arrive at a diagnosis. This condition, what we call as a petaloid pattern or petaloid collection of fluid in the late phase, again gives you an idea that this is a particular condition, CME or whatever. So this pattern, this is again a very, very important pattern to remember, where you have large late pooling, multiple pinpoint hyperfluorescence with large pooling of dye, very specific of certain inflammatory conditions, VKH and other conditions. So this particular pattern will again give you idea about what we are dealing with. Again, one more particular pattern where we see an RP tract extending inferiorly. You look at this pattern, you know this is a particular condition. So this pattern recognition comes from experience, comes from looking at a lot of angiograms. And this is something we would encourage you to do, because this is probably the most important way which we really use to diagnose any angiograms. Never forget to look at the disc fluorescence. Now, disc fluorescence you'll obviously look at if you're looking at a disc pathology like AION or optic neuritis, but even in other conditions like here, our focus is on this lesion here. We keep looking at this lesion, it's early hypo, late hyper, but see what's happening to the disc. Disc is quite significantly stained in the late phase. This uniform bright staining of the disc in the late phase is not normal. The disc in the late phase generally stains just as a rim in the late phase with a relatively hypo in the center. So this again tells you that it's likely to be an inflammatory pathology. So it's one more evidence for it to be an inflammatory pathology. So what you're trying to do from the angiogram is trying to understand the disease process much better. Another condition of inflammatory pathology, here again you'll have a tendency to focus only on these inflammatory lesions, but again look at the disc, what happens. You see a marked intense staining of the disc. So always never forget to look at the disc fluorescence, because that again gives you a lot of information about the disease process. And just to sum up the findings, these are the different steps which we use to really interpret an angiogram. This is nothing but a very logical sequence of interpreting any tests. You start from the clinical findings and go step by step to reach a particular conclusion. Thank you.